Hello and welcome to part 2 of the White Lotus of Light conversational series with Peter Champoux. I can't pronounce his name well, so if you haven't watched part 1 because you're watching this once it's been released publicly, then you probably want to go back and watch part 1. Without further ado, Peter, I want to ask you about the Great Pyramid and the role that the Great Pyramid plays kind of on the consciousness of the planet.
Let's springing off from the last conversation that we had, finishing up in part 1 into part 2. I failed to mention that one of the big features of the California Earth Ring is that the Burning Man Festival is right on it, and that was one of the points that I found that were contributing a lot of fire energy to the California Earth Rings. So when you work with elementals like they are, with worshiping fire at a time of the fiery time of year of August, it kind of attracts the salamanders, those elementals, those fire elementals, and it's what we were doing with the water making was working with the water elementals, the undines. So we called upon the undines for help to bring those waters in, and it's really it kind of shows how important working with spiritual forces is when you're trying to create a biological stasis on the planet. And the Great Pyramid similarly is a force to be reckoned with on the planet, and its position at the geodetic center of the planet, in that if you go north, south, east, west from that point, if you go northeast, southeast, southwest, all those different directions, it hits the most amount of dry land on the planet. So conversely, its antipode on the other side of the planet is at the center of the water mass of the Earth, out there in the middle of the Pacific. So the Great Pyramid was used to be sheathed in limestone, and there was an earthquake in the 1300s that shook loose the Great Pyramid stones. And it was concordant with or near the time that the Templars were burned at the stake. Jacques de Molay was roasted. The whole Templar thing, and that whole business, Friday the 13th, and all the esoterics that have come out of the Templar thing, and the whole Masonic period, and the Egyptian revival that was part of America's development. The Columbia exposition in Chicago. That was all about Egypt, and like during that time, everybody was putting these obelisks in everywhere. So these massive obelisks are a grounding force for the Great Pyramid. Any pyramid works with obelisks. So pyramid is fire in the middle. So the pyramid, if you will, that we see on the Giza Plateau is just the capstone of a world pyramid. You project that down through the planet, and you end up with what's really there, and it's and you follow those lines, those edge forms around the planet as they project out onto a spherical surface or ellipsoid surface. You end up with meeting these places that have a lot to do with war and genocide. So it seems as though that the Great Pyramid is projecting this. Well, is it projecting it, or are we projecting onto it? Like the Great Pyramid takes in, it's kind of a neutral form. It's the slope of the Great Pyramid, if you will, is the same angle as the bonding of water. So the Great Pyramid essentially is a solid molecule of water. So it interfaces with the biosphere, communicates with the biosphere, communicates with all the water of the planet. So
So can you state that one more time? The shape of the Great Pyramid is what? It's a how is it like bonding of water?
well, if you the 51 degree angle of the side of the pyramid, if you do that times two, it ends up 103.5 or something like that. So it that's the ideal bonding angle of water. Oxygen to two hydrogen to one oxygen. The way they bond to water is just like a Great Pyramid.
That's slow.
So yeah.
The Great Pyramid is so incredible. It's hard to understand.
Yeah. So, there's a lot of, attributions, and certainly there's a lot of science that went into its creation. But, when it gets down to it, they're just interfacing with the biosphere, interfacing with the water, interfacing with the water at the center of the planet, too. There's, if you take these two pyramids, the world pyramids, the water pyramid, and the land pyramid, they come together, their points are like this, and projected into the center of the earth, there's this ring of ringwoodite. There's 4 oceans of water inside the planet Earth, and these two interface with it. So it's communicating not only with surface water,
Oh,
primary waters that came from nebula.
the waters that are like locked deep in the bedrock. This is sometimes called God, what is that water called that's deep in the bedrock? Original water?
Primary water.
Yeah, and so they say that anywhere on Earth you can drill if you drill deep enough, which just so happens to be deeper than the depth that there's various, I guess, organizations saying not to drill deeper than that. But if you drill deep enough, you reach this primary water, and supposedly that's maybe what Gaddafi did in Libya that was helping to green Libya, was that he drilled down the primary water. Have you heard that before? Because that's what you're talking about, inner ocean, right?
Yeah. There's, where this inner ocean is, these 4 oceans worth of water are locked in this. It's called a ringwoodite layer. It's a sphere that's 200 to 400 miles down. So we're not drilling that far,
okay.
but geologically, how that water comes to the surface every time there's a volcano. So volcanoes, through the lava vent and everything, make a portal for that water to come to the surface. In Noah's legend, the fountains of the deep rose up, and that's where like those fountains let loose and inundated the existing civilization. We used to have 350. Well, how do I say it? The edge of most continents prior to the flood were 350 feet lower. So you go 300, like off the coast of America, off on those shelves out there, the continental shelves.
That would have
go down through 350 feet of water, and you find civilizations down there, and that's consistent around the planet. So there was a great release of these inner oceans at one point in time. So that gets, when you drill deep enough, you're going to interface with one of those streams that come up from the deep earth.
Interesting.
So the Great Pyramid, if you will, fire in the middle, if you were to project that down into the earth, the baseline of the world pyramid would be right at the bottom of the, here's the pyramid, and right down here at the bottom is the Earth's inner core, just sitting there like the fire in the middle. So it's using the whole planet as its power. So we are, as a collective consciousness, look at pyramids as in, the king and all the serfs and the corporate heads and all the, the whole debt slavery thing, the royalty, and all that way of thinking. We're projecting that onto the Great Pyramid as something that's good, like the so it's a water bond. So we're projecting that ideal, like the whole multi-level marketing that people have made millions on. That's this whole top-down thing, and
So
it's
you're of the opinion that it's not that some group is controlling the Great Pyramid and emanating these frequencies of death, this like that genocide line that comes off of it that goes through Kosovo and all those places that we talked about in our prior conversation. I don't mean part one of this. I mean the one from several months ago. You don't think that it's a group controlling the pyramid and projecting out of it. You think it's just the collective low consciousness of the planet projecting onto the pyramid, and then that does it? I mean, could it be both, or what's your opinion on that? Like, what's controlling and creating this frequency?
Yeah, I'd like to know for sure. But I think it's probably a combination of all the above. When you have a collective consciousness that's all projecting this pyramidal kind of model on the Great Pyramid, it attracts a certain low frequency entities, and those low frequency entities thrive on this kind of energy. So so it's just kind of like this endless loop, and you send it out, and so you have genocide out there, and that genocide is brought back in again. And you look at these projection lines, for instance, the southeast projection line of the Great Pyramid goes right through the Kaaba in Mecca. Wow. So, and it goes right through Mount Carmel and the shrine of the Bab of the Baha'i faith. It goes right through. Well, it doesn't go right through Rome, but very close to Rome. So there. Did I lose you? I got an unstable.
Oh yeah. So you were saying there was a line that went through Rome, so it must be along one of the axes of the pyramid. Like if you draw it through both points of the base.
Yeah, it's the northwest edge, if you will. It goes out towards Rome,
and then the southeast corner goes through Mecca.
Mecca. Yeah. And the northeast edge goes up through Syria, and where all those killing fields are right in Syria right now. It goes out right through Armenia, and if you continue out, it goes right through Fukushima, where like that's killing the the Fukushima nuclear disaster is killing the oceans so. There's this genocidal, it seems like a genocidal program that's being projected out of, because you see these, like Crimea, there's, it's on and on and on in Darfur. So right now we have two conflicts going on, one in Sudan and one in Ukraine that are directly connected on the north-south axis of the Great Pyramid. So and if you will, when you draw the line straight north, it divides Ukraine right in half, and it goes up on farther north. It follows the border of the Russian Eastern European border.
Do any of these lines come through? Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
So Putin has in mind to take that half of Ukraine just so he can have that straight line. It's like I think he's under the control of the Great Pyramid to do this.
Interesting. Very interesting. Do one of the lines coming off the Great Pyramid go through the U.S. at all?
Well, that's the one I mentioned in the part one of the show that will be following the eclipse line. So I have that northwest alignment going out through Italy, through CERN.
Wow.
And then down through St. Lawrence Seaway, and all along the St. Lawrence Seaway, there are like in Buffalo and Cleveland, there are all these massive obelisks that are there that I think were used in order to bring that pyramidal consciousness as a like a syncretic overlay or a borrowing of that old world empire consciousness frame of mind to be part of the American ethos.
It's interesting because there's an obelisk in Central Park in New York that's literally, I want to say it's called Cleopatra's Needle, but it's actually from Europe, or I mean from Egypt, excuse me, from Egypt, that they brought it over, but it had existed in Egypt. And it seems to me like all these objects were once a beautiful thing and have been inverted in their purpose. The Great Pyramid, these obelisks, like I feel like they come from a higher consciousness, but this lower consciousness that I call Molochian consciousness, as in the worship of Moloch and that kind of annihilating energy, that pure exploiting of innocence and all things good energy of Moloch. That's the way that I describe that. Sometimes people call it the satanic energy, whatever. That kind of energy seems to not be able to create it all, but it is able to pervert things and invert them. And I feel like that energy has hijacked these sacred sites and sacred objects. And what I want to know is, can these sacred sites be reclaimed? Should we not even bother, or maybe those groups are focused on those sites, so it's not a good idea? I guess my question would be, one, can we fix the Great Pyramid? And if so, how? And then I guess I have a follow-up question after that that's related.
Oh, yeah. How can we fix the Great Pyramid? It's like restore it. That would be one answer.
So putting the limestone blocks back?
Yeah, put the limestone back up, get it back to its pristine state, operational state as a world maintenance. It's at a sacred site. It's and the radiance that comes off of it certainly locks into the whole. That is the center of one of the Earth rings on the planet, and it locks into a lot of the African and European ring patterns and patterns of the Earth and everything. So to change it is to become aware of it. Mm-hmm. If we're right now, we're just treating it like this I said, butterflies and rainbows, like that. There's this great energy about the Great Pyramid, and it'll sharpen your razor blades and make you, but it really it dries you out, for a pyramid, for a long life of preservation of matter, things of that nature. But it's like, we have to start looking at it as what it is and what it's creating. And by not buying into it anymore and not participating in that loop that we're in, recognize that we're under the influence of some malevolent force. It might be our own force, but it's a malevolent one. And if we can step aside and just say, hey, look at this, look at how all these genocides are all happening in this one ring around the Great Pyramid. That says something. And if we as a collective power can see that and train it for the good and train it for the holy and all that is living and good, mm-hmm. And project that into the Great Pyramid, that's what will come out. So, but right now we're just so involved in this, profit through suffering, the slavery mentality that,
Well, so do you recommend maybe meditating or praying in the direction or with the intent of impacting the Great Pyramid in a positive way? Is that sort of the answer to that?
Yeah, well, one of the answers is what I'm doing with the Great Lakes. Mm-hmm. It's because it comes down through the Great Lakes, right along the Ontario through Ontario. By entraining the Great Lakes into a holy energy, mm-hmm. That would be fed back, like it's a biofeedback into the central mainframe of the planet, which is the Great Pyramid. through, it's the heart center of the planet, if you will. So if it's from the throat to the heart, so it's like coming, bringing some energy into that area. So it's, yeah.
Do you think the Great Pyramid's the heart of the planet then, or the Great Lakes is?
Well, I explained in part one that the latitudes relate to the chakra systems, and the Great Pyramid is on the heart chakra latitude of 30 degrees north, and the Great Lakes are on the throat chakra of 40 degrees north, 40 to 45 degrees north.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so then I want to talk about I talk a lot about in this channel how we're coming up on the end of this yuga, and I'm going to have Bibhu Dev Misra, who is the Indian scholar who he went through every iteration, what Steiner said, what Sri Yukteswar said, what 100 it seemed different. That's probably exaggerating, but a dozen different systems that various Hindu saints or famous Vedic astrologers had put forward as the beginning and the end of the Yuga system. And he came up with the date of way back in like 2011 or something. He came up with the date of 2025 was when the end of the Kali Yuga would be. When I read that in 2018 or 19, I was blown away because I had been looking for a decade for a explanation or a series of dates around when the yugas began and end that clicked for me. And when I found his, it made perfect sense. And I had these things to where when a yuga phase shifted from like a Dwarpa Yuga to a Kali Yuga, there was terrible historical events had happened during that period of time. It was a time of big chaos, or there had been like some natural disaster of some sort right around that same time. And that seemed to be shown with the descending yugas. And so he came up with that the ascending Kali Yuga would end in 2025. And in our first conversation months ago, you said that you felt that that was true. And what you cited in part was the way that the Earth is going to move out of maybe a plasma field emanating from the Galactic Center trough to a plasma field peak. And also that in that trough, there's also some sort of like dark or evil star that went supernova in ancient times, and we're just about to exit that field. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Well, I as a geographer, I look for patterns, and you look at the patterns of the last cycle, the last plasma cycle, which is essentially a 20,000 year span. And it's pretty much pretty dark stuff going on here. We had that great cataclysm of the later Dryas, and then we moved right into all the wars and profit through suffering method. Everything is plus and minus. It's electromagnetic. And these waveforms, if you will, you got peaks and valleys, and so one of the in these spaces between, you have different charges, and the plasma wave separates these charges. So we're going through this plasma wave into a different charge. So when we move through from one charge to the next, the Earth has to adjust to this new charge, new frequency, new polarity that is in space. So we've been flying through a remnant of an exploded star that has is an atmosphere that is rife with like archons, if you will, negative entities that are feed off our energy vampires essentially. And they propagate war because they live off of trauma, and they live off of the fear and everything that gets generated. So, we've developed all these fear mechanism things. We have to have a mutual assured destruction. Fear. I remember as a kid worrying about the nuclear bombs being dropped
Too.
on Westover Air Force Base. And, it's just so the only way you can escape that fear is to buy health insurance. Death is coming. You need to have health insurance. You need to have life insurance. I mean, everything is all fear based. The
Mhm.
hospitals, and it's all just this. But it's all generated because of this thing of profit through suffering, and that's really been the motto for these past 20,000 years. Is like let's have this dominance, and take whatever we want, at the expense of like essentially turning us into predators. We prey on each other for our daily bread.
Mhm.
As humans, the economy that we have going, it's like, I got to take from the other guy, the other guy's going to take from me, and so that's all this kind of negative frequency we've been going into, and it's been an economy of taking, and I think when we move into this new frequency, it's going to be an economy of giving
Mhm.
that will take hold, and at
So,
least that's my hope.
so, couple of things. One is that the great year to move all the way around the Galactic Center is, I think it's just short of 26,000 years. Um, and if you divide that by two, you get 13,000 years. And about 13,000 years ago, it seems, is that's when the Younger Dryas uh, impact or Younger Dryas phenomenon occurred. Um, it seems that that lines up with the drop from the Golden Age into the Silver Age, at least according to this Indian scholar. And that since then, consciousness was lowering, 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 and it would have hit its nadir or kind of lowest point at roughly the time of King Solomon. And then since then, we've been in a very slow grinding upward consciousness, but still in Kali Yuga, still in this very low Yuga. He believes, and this resonates as true for me for what it's worth, that we will be going into a Dwarpa Yuga or a Bronze Age Yuga. There are others who are of the opinion that you go from Kali Yuga to Sat Yuga, like you have a compression breakthrough almost from the suffering of Kali Yuga and you go straight to a Golden Age. Do you have an opinion on that? It's okay if you don't. I'm just curious because I'm of the opinion that we're more than likely, just based on the way I see people's consciousness developing, we're going to move into a Bronze Age, which would be a huge improvement over this nightmare of the Kali Yuga, but would still not be like a perfectly harmonious sort of golden age. I'm just curious, and I mean, like, we don't need to agree on this. That's why I'm asking your opinion.
Yeah, it's my opinion.
Oh yeah, no, of
my
course, it's just my
yeah
opinion.
uh yeah, I mean, I'll let the expert speak to this about, I'll agree with what you just had to say about the Yugas and what that fella had to say about them. It makes sense to me, but I think when you go through this plasma wave, that's when everything shifts.
Yeah.
It's like everything's different after you go through that thing. There's just so much light that, right now, it's, when I was a kid, I looked at the sun and, okay, draw a picture of the sun and it painted orange always.
Yeah.
And now I'd have to paint it titanium white. And I know many of us elders have mentioned that the sun
Yellow
is
when
like totally different than when we
yellow
were
when I
kids in
was a
the
kid.
50s. Yeah.
It was
So something's up,
orange.
and with that amount of extra light hitting the planet, I mean, it's DNA and do all kinds of stuff. And I think that's I think they're really trying to suppress that awakening that's being stimulated by this extra light,
Mm-hmm.
by making this electron fog, and by trying to shut down our pineal glands through fluoridation
Absolutely.
and all this chemtrailing and everything. It's all part of trying to reduce the soul from becoming all that you can be. And I think we can be a lot more than what we are. And when we become that new soul, when we acknowledge and become these light beings, these pyramidal controllers have no power over us anymore. We're sovereign beings. We have a sovereign relationship with Creator. We have a sovereign relationship with one another. We don't need to have these corporations telling us how to do how to do it, and what we should do, and how we should feel, and that we need to be in fear or whatever of each other. No, we don't need to be in fear of each other. That just makes money. We don't need to. We need to cooperate with it. We don't each have to have a lawnmower. We can, share a lawnmower. Whatever. But that doesn't, it doesn't make billionaires. So, it seems to be a need in this age to for kingship, to be these overlords. And, I don't know, there's just got to be a better way than this.
Absolutely.
And I think once we get through the light and we're purged of these kind of negative entities who can't follow us, all these bugaboos that have been, attached to everybody's aura and everything, as we go through this light field, man, they just get burned away. So, and that includes the planet Earth. The planet as a body itself, as a light being itself, when it goes through this plasma wave of the galactic plasma wave, it's game over for these critters. And they know it, let's have more wars, and let's see now, feed. It's like, it's just, when you start to see this stuff, it just,
and so
what are we doing?
The window that you see is from 2024 to 2030. Is that correct?
Well, the window I see is more of 100-year process. But the actual, when we actually get into the nitty gritty of that plasma wave, is that 20 to 25 to, well, actually some First Nations contacts I have, their word is that next year, 2024.
Interesting.
Is when things will really start changing. And 2030 is we'll be into that, and everything will be changed by then. But it's like 100 years, from what I understand, to go through this particular wave, according to astrophysicists that I can't name.
Interesting.
I don't know. I can't remember their names. But
are there lots of undulations around the Galactic Center, or is there just like one sort of, I don't know, like undulation that where you are either decreasing consciousness or you start increasing consciousness? You're either at a low ebb of consciousness, like going down in consciousness, and a super low ebb, and then you start going back up again. Like, it seems like it's half kind of.
This material I got from the researcher Rory. Oh, sorry, Rory. I can't remember his name, but he's a geomancer in England. And he was looking at ley lines and the patterns of ley lines, and he'd go out to this one ley line every day, and found that every 8 days the ley lines came into harmony. I mean, ley lines kind of like have these undulations, like two lines, plus minus, and the patterns can be very irregular. But every 8 days, they come into synchronized, harmonious pattern. And he said, well, what is that? Why every 8 days this happens? How come? And so he started looking at the solar plasma. He came to the solar plasma waves that come off of the sun, and that's this undulation. And the Earth goes through it every 8 days. So it creates a harmony. A harmony is generated every 8 days. So he took the same model and found that it's a fractal model that's also related to the galactic undulations of plasma waves coming out of the Galactic Center. out of Hunab Kub, according to the
Yeah, that is awesome. Okay, so let's see. What else do I want to ask? Okay, so I guess you kind of already answered this in part one, but I wanted to ask you, what kind of buildings could we build to change consciousness in a positive direction, and what ley lines should be built upon if you were going to want to change things? Are there ones that are a little less fraught with like civilization and currently unfolding wars? Because that's obviously not a reasonable place to start building some sacred structure to fix things in the middle of like, Ukraine or something. Like you probably don't want to set up shop and try and build a building there. Are there other lays that are perhaps currently more stable that could be built in, anywhere on Earth? Is there like a particular latitude that should be built upon? And what kind of buildings would bring about a positive change in consciousness in your estimation?
To answer the lay question first, I look towards the lays that have been most recently used by indigenous cultures, because those lays still have that memory of a time, before the colonial imposition of energies, and it is more of a Garden of Eden, if you will. But there's one particular ley line across North America that I've termed the Kachina Ley, that goes from Mount Tequete, which is outside of Tequete, Mexico, Tequete, California. It's right on the border. And Mount Kuchama right there, that's just another name for Mount Tequete, is a ceremonial site for the Kumeyaay people down there, and it's where you go to pray for good things. If you try to do any kind of bad black magic there, you kind of get struck by lightning, and that's it for you. But so going across following this trajectory, which I established because of the line that the Kachinas travel between the San Francisco Peaks and the Hopi Mesa. The Hopi snake dancers do this thing, where they attract water from the San Francisco Peaks, and they call in the water Kachinas to water their corn garden, their blue corn Hopi blue corn. And so if you keep that going, it goes up into Shiprock, New Mexico, which is another sacred site, and right across through the Great Lakes, and it hits a lot of places that are associated with creator beings of indigenous peoples. So it's a fairly clear energy, clean energy. There's a lot of spiritual work going on that line. And another one is the First Nations Ley, which comes off of Boston and goes through the Finger Lakes and over through the Great Lakes and down through the Black Hills and up to Mount Shasta. And if you continue that around the planet, it goes to Hawaii and Australia and West Africa, South Africa and West Africa, and back to Boston again. So that's like this indigenous consciousness field. So that's what I've been working on.
Where in Australia does that go through?
Right through the Murray River Valley.
The Murray River Valley. Okay, I have a lot of Australian viewers for some reason, and so I'm sure.
Yeah, right through it keys off of Kangaroo Island on the south shore.
Wow. Okay.
Right there at the outlet of the Murray River.
Yeah, and so
that's where that one.
Sorry.
Go ahead. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Your turn. That's those are the lines that you would build on, and then what sort of buildings are the best? Because I mean, like there's pyramids that you see built all over the earth. There's the beautiful like Chinese and Japanese pagodas that are often built, or they have beautiful sort of gardens they build in Korea where they do the feng shui, in some of the cities. And then there's cathedrals and mosques. I mean, what in your estimation? Then there's the sort of the temples of the ancients. What sort of structures are best for I don't know, redeeming or cleaning or empowering these lines.
Anything that isn't modern.
Yeah, no,
It seems like architecture today is just made to deaden the spirit. I don't know, it's really bad stuff.
intent.
But if you incorporate any architecture that incorporates the phi proportion in it, is tends to be enlivening and life giving, because it's the life number. You find it in conch nautiluses and the pentagram, and it's kind of it's the God number, the Fibonacci spiral. The your basic paperback book is 5 by 8 or something, and that's the phi proportion, and it's pleasing to the eye to look at over long periods of time. If it was a square, have you ever tried to read a book that's square? It's like, man, this drives me nuts. So you have to, that's an appealing form to the eye, and to look at the face. If you have a well proportioned face, it tends to be phi proportion. And in Egypt, they're all about that phi in the Great Pyramid, and in the Sphinx. In Greece, that was all about phi. So phi nests the culture into the fabric of life. So every culture that has used phi as in quote sacred geometry in their building design tend to last longer. Usually civilizations are 250, 287 years, I think, is what the most civilizations come and go at. But ones that last to be 1,000 or so, tend to use these proportions in their forms. Now, when you look at like teepees and such, they're in phi proportion. So wow, how did they? Wow, they don't have protractors, but they have the human body. And a lot of indigenous construction, European, everywhere around the world, the builders use their bodies as measurement. And when you do that, your architecture reflects that natural proportion, because it's within the human body itself. So yeah, I mean that's the way to do it. And the other way, something.
You said another way to do it, and then you cut out.
Yeah, so another way to do this is exampled by what I call earth rings, and that's the earth itself has these various spheres, like a membrane, then it goes into the mantle, then it hits the ringwoodite, then it goes into the lower mantle, then the earth, the outer core and the inner core. Now, when you take that, and there are 4 different spheres, and nested within that, you can find, like the size of the mantle is the same size as Venus. The size of the inner core is the same size as Mars. The outer core is the same size as Mars. The inner core is the same size as the moon or Pluto. So, like it's this proportion reflects the ordering of the cosmos, and this ordering of the cosmos can be duplicated and replicated with the enneagram. So the 9-pointed star. So you can make 4 polygons with an enneagram. Like take a line and connect each one, one to another, and you generate kind of the Earth's mantle. And then you connect every 2, and you end up with that ringwoodite sphere. You connect every 3, and you end up with the outer core, and every 4 you end up with the inner core, with these very sharp points, if you will, in the nine-pointed star. So when you use the enneagram as a generative geometry for your architecture, even if it's just implied, through just certain arcs within this dwelling, you key that frequency that is a universal organizing mechanism that seems to me to be a gravity field. So like the Earth is
The Earth is, and then it cut out. Sorry.
the Earth is in this form.
Mm-hmm.
The solar system is in this form. The galaxy, the density of stars in a galaxy is in this form.
Mm-hmm.
So it's and it's in the human eye too. If you look at the iris and pupil and all that, it's the same geometry as the Enneagram.
Mm-hmm.
So if we replicate universal shapes and forms, and incorporate the phi ratio within them, we attract life. That the messaging of our architecture is to, is like a gravity field. So, and if we incorporate within that 9 geometry a phi proportion, we then attract life. If whatever you is a medicine wheel. So when I put a medicine wheel on a certain strategic place in the earth, and put a particular intention into that medicine wheel, that gets attracted to it because just of the nature of, it's a gravity field. I was doing that experimentally down in the deserts of the Southwest and to try to make it rain down there. And it was very successful.
Wow, that's incredible. Like in the desert Southwest, that's really amazing. Well, Peter, I'm just gonna have to have you on again because I need to wrap things up because I have an appointment with the client after this. But that was fantastic, and God, there's so much I want to ask you. So, like I said, I'm just gonna have to have you on again because there's a bunch of stuff I didn't have a chance to get to. Thank you.
Ask Peter.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Ask Peter anything. So.
Yeah, well, I mean, your answers are phenomenal, and like your knowledge is incredible. So, I so appreciate you and what you're doing. Thank you, Peter. And where can people find you? I'll have all your information, of course, below in the description of the video. But where can people find you so you can just say it?
Yeah, anyone can contact me. I'm at peter.champoux with, of course, a funny spelling, CHAMPOUX, as X-ray, and Champoux. Champoux is the way you pronounce it, but Americans say shampoo because we can't do that that nose thing. But and I'm at geometryofplace.com is one of my older sites, and I'm working on this new one called purespiritwaters.org, plural on that, waters. Pure Spirit Waters.
And I'll have those.
So I'm very available.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Peter. It's been an absolute pleasure, and thank you so much for your time. It's such a gift. So I'll talk to you for a second afterwards, but to everyone watching, thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already, hit like and subscribe, and if you're interested in Peter's work, please go check out his websites. All right, thank you. Bye.